Greetings, viewers. This is Daniel Kremer, filmmaker and film historian, and I'm doing a solo for many with this commentary track for Duet for One. So for the film, Julie Andrews worked especially hard getting into the character. She studied for weeks to give the appearance of playing the violin convincingly. Spent time meeting people with MS at a clinic in Bromley in Kent. And she called this role the most desperate and emotionally pained woman I have ever played. Now, one must consider where Julie Andrews is coming from career-wise when she takes on Duet for One. Here we're, of course, incorporating, I think, a number of photos from Julie Andrews' own past, and of course you have some doctored photos of Julie and Alan Bates kind of, giving kind of providing us a character history. I do believe that the one that Julie Andrews is pictured with JFK, I do believe was the real JFK and Julie photo. I believe she was touring at the time Broadway with I think they'd begun on the British stage with My Fair Lady, and I think she had just moved over to Broadway with that role. And of course, the how she wound up in the movies is really kind of the stuff of legends, and she is the great star of both stage and screen that we know her to be today. Let's have a short career retro, because the kind of the arc of her career is important to consider when we are taking into account what Duet for One meant in the whole expanse of that. So, of course, she was a great star of the British stage, the West End, My Fair Lady. She was the original Eliza Doolittle. Jack Warner, in casting the film version, directed by George Cukor, vetoed the casting of Julie Andrews for that role, and Audrey Hepburn would have taken her place. And of course, happy ending of happy endings, she took the role of Mary Poppins for Walt Disney, who had the wherewithal and the foresight to know that she would photograph well. That she wasn't just a stage presence, that there was more to her. And of course, she won the Oscar for Best Actress that year. It was the first acting award that a Disney film ever won. And so Julie Andrews achieved that for herself, and then she went on as not to be typecast, because that was really one of the pitfalls and the perils of beginning your movie career with a role like Mary Poppins. An actress doesn't want to just play one thing, and she was worried, I think, that they were going to typecast her as sugar and spice and everything nice. So she took the role of opposite James Garner in the Americanization of Emily, under the direction of Arthur Hiller, which was kind of a saucy, spicy little movie for its stage, as written by Paddy Chayefsky. Film that I very much am a fan of, and is worth seeing. It's not often talked about nowadays, which is unfortunate. Worth the conversation. Then, of course, she moves on to the into The Sound of Music, and need I say more beyond that? I mean, that was one of the biggest worldwide box office success for many years, I believe, until Airport came along. I think it was the Airport. I think it was Sound of Music, Airport, The Sting, and then Jaws, and then Star Wars. But that was the first kind of barnstormer, I guess you might say, at the box office, was Julie Andrews, and she was like, truly, if you pardon the terrible pun, top of the mountain. She climbed every mountain. She was the number one box office star of both 1966 and '67 as a direct result of her appearances, really in both Mary Poppins and the Sound of Music. So she works with Hitchcock. She works with she works with Max von Sydow on George Roy Hill's Hawaii. She works again with George Roy Hill on the early Modern Millie, which of course later becomes a Broadway musical. And then she hits kind of the skids, if you will, with the movie Star, directed by Robert Wise, who directed her in The Sound of Music. I love Star personally. I saw Star on a 70 millimeter print, beautiful, at Lincoln Center. One of the most exciting screenings I've ever attended, easily. It might even be the most exciting, because I know it was a beautiful 70 millimeter print of that film, and after every musical number, the audience rose to their feet and applauded like it was a live show. I'll never forget that. And of course, by the time the finale number, the Saga of Jenny, when that coded, the room, the theater went bananas. Anyway, that did not do well at the box office, though, or with critics at the time, even though it's developed a kind of a cult following, a cult regard, I guess. And then that was further kind of ignominy followed with Darling Lily, which again, fans of Blake Edwards and Julie's will defend that film. But that was that film nearly toppled Paramount, and it was kind of the end of the musical era, the big budget, the mega budget musical era that was drawing to a close around that time. So Julie Andrews kind of, you could say, fell out of favor because she was synonymous with those types of films. She had done Mary Poppins, Sound of Music, the early Modern Millie, Star, and then Darling Lily. 5 of these mega budget, in some cases roadshow musicals with intermission and printed programs and assigned seating and all that, reserved seating, I should say, and all that stuff, all those trimmings. And so because she was so synonymous with those types of films, her career kind of took a dive around this time. And it was 4 years later that she took a break. 4 years later, she reemerged with, oh yes, here we have the young, beautiful, at the outset of his career, Liam Neeson, folks. So we're going to be talking about Liam as we head on in the runtime. I think a pretty formative role for him. Anyway, she reemerges in one of her husband's films, the Tamarind Seed, which, does whatever. And then with 10, she is second billed in 10 after Dudley Moore. But of course, because of the whole Bo Derek and Dudley and everything else, that film becomes a huge box office hit in 1979. And she's kind of back on the map again, and she does films like Little Miss Marker. Then, of course, she bears her breasts quite famously in her husband Blake Edwards' comedy S.O.B. That was 1981. And kind of a repudiation of her squeaky clean image, I guess you'd say. And, of course, that the conceit of that film is that her husband is a filmmaker, and he's made a kind of G-rated musical flop. And he reshoots and re-edits that G-rated musical flop starring his wife into this X-rated pornographic epic, or softcore epic, I guess you might say. That's kind of the farce aspect of S.O.B. And, of course, that, throughout the 80s, you could argue that she was trying to deepen her image as an actress and not simply this musical star or this family children's film kind of icon. She was trying to carve her way out of the Mary Poppins rut or trap. She, of course, like any actor, doesn't want to be typecast. So, and thankfully, she had a director for a husband, a very good director husband, Blake Edwards, writing roles for her in his films. And the best of those, if you ask me, discounting this one and you know, just for the sake of my doing the commentary on, but I love Victor Victoria. I think Victor Victoria is not just a great musical comedy, and it's also a masterpiece, but it was also the great marriage of the musical Julie Andrews with the more adult material, the kind of deeper, more complex acting material and adult material that she was vying for, that she wanted to prove herself as an actress. And she was given this perfect vehicle, this remake of a 1933 German film that, you know, with this Henry Mancini song score and brilliantly written by Blake and by, I believe that was a collaboration with another writer. I think it's Waldman, I think, if memory serves. Anyway, it really met her in the middle. It met her in the marriage of musical star, as I mentioned, and adult actress, not adult film actress, but this actress doing mature material, doing the work of the acting craft beyond just the Marias and the Sound of Music and beyond the Mary Poppinses and all that stuff. So she also takes on a role in The Man Who Loved Women, which is her husband's remake of a Francois Truffaut film with Burt Reynolds, which, you know, didn't do very well at the box office, but it was again her vying for further respectability. She wanted to carve out a niche for herself that might not have been allowed when people were always thinking of her as Mary Poppins. So then she takes on, quite famously, her husband, Blake Edwards, does this non-union film, which was very controversial at the time. He writes this film that he shoots independently and kind of makes it, if you wanted to call it off the books, but without a union crew, and this was very, very controversial at the time, and whereas a film called That's Life, and she is cast opposite Jack Lemmon, and there's, you know, kind of this whiff of existential dread in that film, medical test results in the waiting, and kind of the middle-age anxieties, tapping into the reality of living life, fear of death, coming onto your own when you don't have a grasp of who you are anymore. And that was a perfect segue into Duet for One. So now I'm happy to have provided this backdrop by which Julie comes to this role, because I think it's important. Her various evolutions, as you were, the various stages of her evolution. So that by the time we get to Duet for One in this film, we've been on a journey with her. If you watched her from film to film to film, from Mary Poppins onward, you see very much this new chapter open, this break from an earlier, not just squeaky clean Julie Andrews, but a Julie she's looking for a multi-dimensional self with real fears, with real desires, we know the fears of this character. But anyway, getting back to Max von Sydow, he kind of makes the leap into English language cinema in a big way with Hawaii, which is the #1 box office hit of the year 1966, and which happened to star Julie Andrews as his wife. So this is their at least their second collaboration. I can't think of any other collaborations that they had. I might have been able to look this up, but I didn't think to before I jumped on this track. But I think it was only these two films. It was Duet for One and Hawaii. So this is one of the most poignant scenes in Duet for One. We're talking about we're looking at Julie reliving her glory days, watching herself the way she was, the way we were, the way she was. There's something unbearable about this. Now I'm a filmmaker in my own right. I've directed a number of feature-length films, and I live for it. Of course, I love what I do. I could never imagine going blind. It's a fate to me that would be unthinkable. As not only just as a human being, no one wants to lose their eyesight, even if you were not an artist, but as a visual artist. Just imagine if you're a visual artist losing your eyesight. And this is what the Julie character is. The level of emotion, the depth of her crisis, the bleak thoughts, the thoughts of ending it all. And she's playing this beautifully. It's heartbreaking. It's making me emotional just watching it, and I might need to take a breath because it's hard. This is really the crux of the film, in my opinion. It's realizing that it's never going to be the way it was before. Their best days are behind you. And if you live for what it is you do, if you live for, in her case, playing the violin, attracting big concert crowds, and you're looking back and realizing that that's never going to happen again. Very hard reality to reckon with, and that's why films like Whose Life Is It Anyway, which tackles it actually with humor. I think these two films, Whose Life Is It Anyway and Duet for One, share a lot of connective tissue, if you want to call it that. This kind of otherworldly visit by this character who has left her, as everyone has left her. Lovers, husbands, protégés. Really a brave picture for Julie to have taken on around this time. Here we have this final sequence, which is, we're meant to understand that this is 1 year later, but to what degree is this a kind of woebegone fantasy? To what degree is this things as she would like them to be, coping, adjusting? We know from the story of Jacqueline Dupre, that things did not end well. She died at a tragically young age. Is this what is in store for the Julie Andrews' character in this film? Is this what is in store for our Stephanie Anderson character? We are placed in a kind of, there's a bit of equilibrium about this whole final sequence of scenes. There's a kind of a equanimity or surrender around this, in equal doses. But is it real? Max von Sydow is here now. He's become a friend, we are to assume, outside of the therapy room, outside of the comfort and protection and safety of the therapy room. And this final image of the tree, which of course graces all of the VHS covers I've ever seen of this film, including the book box, one that I mentioned at the outset of this track.
What a beautiful tree.
The tree is very much a central symbol in the film.
You like it?
And we also end on it as well.
Did you expect otherwise?
In terms of the bookend idea, we open on the tour bus driving around London in traffic-heavy areas. We are introduced to the Julie Andrews character as a life in the fast lane, in a way. She's a very successful, popular world musician, very accomplished. She exists in that realm. And we close on solitude, tranquility, away from all that. We're meant to equate that with peace. But how much can we take away from, is this a terrible peace, or is this a piece where she is surrendering with a whimper? Is any of this real? Is it a fantasy? Outside looking in kind of intimates a bit of Ingmar Bergman. This feels very much also like a Bergman ending in a way. The vision by the lake, the lone woman. You could easily imagine B.B. Anderson or Liv Ullmann going through the motions and the rigors of this sequence. And that's the best compliment that you could maybe give it. If the film ends like a Bergman film and stands on its own 2 feet, there's not a lot more you could ask for. And I hope that people... There's never been a film that's really played terribly much, and I think that's tragic. And I think the material, people see it, they think it's going to be a downer. I think it's a kind of panic in a way that, that people are not comfortable maybe considering how a similar tragedy might happen to befall them. But I think this is a wonderfully human film. That's a very generic thing to say, obviously. We are human, we make films about humans, the human condition. But it puts you through these emotional rigors and these touchstones that we can all identify. the things, the final image, her looking through the window, life as she would like it to be again, the people she loves. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Maybe that's enough.